Hello, folks. Welcome to the Chinese American Librarian Association webinar, a conversation with Chee Wang Ng, co-editor of the Corky Lee's Asian America 50 Years of Photographic Justice. My name is Ray Pan. My pronouns are he and him, and I am the moderator for this webinar and the immediate past president of the Chinese American Librarians Association. And I wanted to share that we're so delighted to have Chee Wang here to speak with us about this important book that we're going to talk a little more about. Unfortunately, Professor Mei and I could not join us due to incidences that she has to deal with, but we're delighted to still have this conversation to really discuss the impact of Corky Lee and his work and photos documenting Asian American social justice movements. And for those who are not familiar, Corky Lee from 1947 to 2021 was a native of Queens, New York, an activist photographer who documented Asian American communities and movements for social justice for 50 continuous years. And what's remarkable is that his work and legacy continues to impact how we do the work we do in libraries and archives, which is that there are primary sources for us to document the experiences, the myriad experiences of Asian American communities. And also wanted to recognize that this month is May, which is the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. So it's a really great opportunity to celebrate and recognize pioneers and amazing work by so many folks in the field, as well as those whose work helps support the work we do in engaging with students, teachers, faculty, and the general community. So that includes folks like Chee Wang, Professor Meng Ai, Corky Lee, and so many other folks. So I'm so delighted to welcome Chee Wang here, and we'll get started. I think you know you're welcome to share what you'd like first about your work and related to Corky Lee, if you like, Chee Wang.
Yeah. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join us for this webinar. And I'm so glad that I'm able to share Corky's book with you guys. And I've known Corky for over 30 years. When I first came down to New York after, I graduated from Rhode Island School of Design, and I work as the assistant art director for the magazine Progressive Architecture in Stamford, Connecticut. And I always spend my weekends in New York. And when I first came to New York in the um, late 80s, so and then before I know it, I started working in New York, and I've known Corky ever since then. So I'm glad that you guys this book, Asian American Corky Lee's Asian American 50 Years of Photographic Justice. And I'm so glad that able to share this book with you. I've been working on this book with Corky for the last 13 years practically. And we started working on Corky's um, catalog. And somehow, through the years, we sort of got it shelved. And unfortunately, during COVID, Corky passed away. And Johan, Corky's brother, sort of, wanting to fulfill Corky's bucket list, like of better to say, invited me, and we got a publisher that's interested in publishing this book, and we invited Professor May Nine to join us as the team to produce this book, and there we have. What's wonderful about this book is that Corky has given us dedicated his 50 years of his life, you know, in from the early 70s to pretty much the week that he passed away to document the everyday life, the voice, the inside voice of the Asian American. And he not only documented life and the people from New York City, but across America. So you have a his continuous devotions to give a voice to the Asian Americans. And this gives us a good foundations to build upon. And, and there's some photograph in this book that has never, ever been published before. and we were able to wonderfully able to get onto his part of his archive to get some photograph that which we need to show to the community at large, and particularly to the Asian Americans, that what have been done, to you know, to give us a better foundations. And Corky has always champions, photographic justice. And one of the things that in the context of things, to understand why Corky photograph is valid is because he majored in American history in Queens College. So when he took every photograph that he took it from his perspective, in a historical context, to say, why it's important, what's important. And it's not just a simple photograph, but a photograph with with a statement. And in this book, it's sort of multidimensional in the sense that you can see the way Professor May Nang and I set it up. So the photograph are pretty much in a by the decades, in a chronological order, from the 70s right, to the 2000s. And it started, the first few pages to set up a sense of place, what Chinatown was in the 70s. And we bookended it in the last photograph that you see in the book, which is still from Chinatown. So you have that comprehensive idea of what it is. But at the same time, the book is sort of multidimensional in the sense that you can see how Corky developed as a photographer, and what his focus in the decades, and what's important to the life of Asian Americans, in particular. You see, this was the last image in the book, which is about we China, like a Chinatown, because during COVID, Chinatown was dead, and then the community people in New York, especially. So we lit up Chinatown to bring nightlife back to Chinatown, and sort of, as I said, beginning of in the 70s, and ended up in these 2000s of old Chinatown. But in between, Corky has traveled across America to shoot at all the important events, incidents. And of course, he went to Detroit to photograph, the Vincent Chin cases. And, definitely, if you look through the book, there's a photograph of humanity, which is basically the photograph of Vincent Chin's mother. And, what else can I say? It's just a photograph of a woman grieving. But what is the woman grieving about, and who is she? And she's let me just show you the pictures. Oops, sorry. Simple woman, but but that's important. And we would have forgotten this image, but Corky have photographed us and reminded us, what it is to be human. And basically, you have a simple photograph of Corky's mother's sewing machine. To a lot of Asian Americans, they're of early generations, especially in Chinatown, and that's how the women's make a living, and that's how they provide for the family. So, look at each image in its own context, and to show us how much things has changes, and how much more we need to go from here. And especially, I'm so glad to be able to share this book with the Asian American photographer, Asian American librarian, sorry. And because, librarians are very resourceful, and we need to share this with the big audience at large, because, we don't need to preach to our own choir. We know who we are, but we need to share our voice with the rest of the, society at large.
Yeah, that was really fascinating to see some of the images you shared, and the idea of photographic justice, right? It's so pronounced in this book and in his work, and it makes me think of the idea of preservation, why it's so important, especially how we document what and see what's and share out what's happening and preserve it. But what do you think about how we document stuff that's happening today, the activities, and how complicated or maybe how maybe it's maybe not as difficult?
Exactly the point. Every day, each of us have a cell phone, we photograph everything and as Chinese, just like anybody else, we photograph every food that we eat, that's very, very common. But at the same time, what's the intention? All right. The intention of Corky's photographing is each of the image, and I had to do extensive editing with Professor Nine in the sense that we have to find the right image to make that statement. And Corky sort of he called it photographic justice in a sense that he basically started off after college in Queens. And because he's from the generations of the Vietnam War, he was a conscientious objector to the Vietnam War. And so what he did was basically join the American Corps, basically an alternative to as a service to the society. And he was assigned to become the community uh, organizer for the Twin Bridges, which is an organization in um, New York Chinatown to help the local with housing. And from then, he basically was very, very involved with the social right movements, with the basement workshop, and other early Asian American social movements, and especially in a culture platform to give a voice. And that's what he started. And when he said photographic justice is basically his point is basically when he recreated in the 145th anniversary of the completion of the cross-continental railroad, and he uh, exampled over 250 people to recreate the image, which includes descendants of the railroad workers, and that to him is a social photographic social justice in a sense that he wanted to make a statement that, hey, the Chinese built it, but in the original photograph that was taken by, uh, you know, there was not any Chinese there because the Chinese was not needed to show that, there's a big the completion of the railroad. But he make a point in terms of using photographic justice to make a statement that we were there, we contributed, and that's what his photograph is all about.
Yeah, and it's remarkable where there are thousands of photos you mentioned that you and Professor and I had to go through. How did you decide which ones to include?
Well, as I said, I started working with Corky on this book 13 years ago, and that was started with pretty much about 100 black and white photograph, and that sort of become the basis of the book. But also we went through some of his archive from what materials we have access to, at this junctions, and we want to, pretty much complete the story that what 70 was what 1970s was like, and beyond, and some of the later photograph that he shot, especially the photograph that he shot during COVID, and what it was like in Chinatown. And also we were very, very glad that Corky is very, very sharing, and a lot of his photograph were used by different media, different group, and especially Asian American group, and they were very generous to you know that we have access to those images. And from there we basically, there's only that many pages in this book, and that is, if you actually hold a book, there's a certain weight to it. That's the gravitas, and that's how what the book is about, and that's what his mission in his life to share with the rest of the world. The voice of the Asian American visually, and as I said, a picture is worth 1,000 words. There are over 200, I think 265. over 260 photographs in this book, and with different essay from prominent writers, especially some of the most contemporary writers, of how he feels about Corky and what some of the photograph is to the community. And that's really, really important. It's not one side, you know, of the story, but multiple voices about what the photograph is all about, and to read beyond the image itself, and to give it that context. To us, context is really important because we want to build upon. We want to establish ourselves of who we are and how much, the Asian American has contributed to the American society at large and to the world in general. And that's what, um, the book is all about.
What did you find surprising or unexpected as you were going through this process, whether it's about Corky or something else?
What I find is pretty amazing is that Corky also very, very knowingly, photographed being Chinese, not the Chinese community, but the Pan-Asian community, because it's Asian Americans. And also we were very, very conscientious to find the right image for the cover. But at the same time, if you look around, the Sikh in Asians. All right. So it's Pan-Asian. And basically what a lot of most time everybody thought about Asian Americans, thought about East Asians. But it's beyond East Asians, because we are the minor minorities, and Corky have understanding to group us together. And he covers pretty much every major Asian American events, especially in New York. And as I was, as I would hang around with him, and I prepared some of his early exhibitions, and I always share another stories, is that every time he have a big exhibitions, he would say, Chee, I'm having this exhibitions. Why don't you come and help me? I said, oh, fine, so when we go to the site, he would be very enthusiastic and say, oh, Chee, I want this photograph, I want that photograph, and this is the space that I have, and blah, 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 And of course, he has far too many photographs for one exhibition, but he said, I want like this, I want that. And I kind of said, well, Corky, show it to me. Let me know what you want. What's the idea of this exhibitions? He just go on and on for the next 15, 20 minutes. And after a little while, I said, Corky, just leave it here. And we know each other for so long, and we know each other cues. And I said, Corky, I think you need to use the restroom. He knows exactly you know, what I meant. So he basically excused himself and then take longer than what is needed. And by the time he come back to the gallery, and I sort of regroup the photograph, in this wall. So make a photographic statement of the show, because each photograph make a statement, but how in a curatorial form to make a bigger statement. I regroup the photograph and set it up. I say, hey, Corky, is that how you like to see your show? What is that what you have in mind? And he said, no, I want this photograph. I said, okay, it's your show, it's fine, but there's only finite space on the wall, and that's you don't need to overcrowd it, but you need to make a statement. If photograph is important to you, let's use this, but we need to take off certain photograph so that it has a comprehensive idea of what you want to present. Then we would discuss and say, is this the show that you have in mind? Okay, fine. Then we set it up. So with that idea in mind, that's how we sort of choose the photograph in this book, in a sense that what is the right statement that could be articulated in the best way we could. And over the decades, what's important. And Corky also pretty much the voice of the pretty much the everyday common people. What's the voice? And yes, he photographed a lot of celebrities, and of course, everybody wants to know that who Corky photographed. when we added some of the photograph of the big name celebrities and stuff like that, which he documented. But at the same time, we want to put them there in a context that is part of the society and that's part of our community. And that's how we can see through the decades what's important, what's relevant, and also you can see Corky, as I said before, he objected to the Vietnam War, but at the same time, you can see how he himself grow personal over the time because his father served in the Second World War and he joined the Son of the Veterans, and he also champions the idea he went to Congress to testify and support, to get the gold medal for the Americans veterans. So you can see how patriotic he becomes over the years, and and we want to this book to reflect, the voice of Corky and how he sees, the society, in his point of view, and that's why the title is Corky Lee's Asian Americans. Yes, there are different point of view, but this book is from Corky's perspective, and that's what I like everybody to know who he was. And also, last year, on May 4th, uh, daily you have Google's, doodles, and that was we featured um, Google's featured Corky's on that day. And recently, last year, one of the streets in New York was named Corky Lee Way. So we were so happy that we get a lot, Corky, after his passing, get a lot of recognitions. And we like to share this, his life with the rest of the people and through the library at large, because through the library, we would like to, spread the words. And, that's what we want, like to everybody to know about it.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing the anecdotes of your interactions with Corky. And for those who are wondering about the celebrities, in the book, I had noticed Margaret Cho, Sandra Oh, Daniel Dae Kim. There's so many folks that Corky was able to take pictures of in the mid to early 2000s.
Mhm.
So I also wanted to share that in the book, it was mentioned, I think it was Professor Ngai who wrote that Corky was known before Facebook started, right? That he was sort of like the Facebook, right? Because he was so connected, so embedded in the Asian American communities in New York and elsewhere. And then what was also remarkable is that the book goes through a chronological sequence where it is the photos are completely black and white and then it transitions to color. So I thought that
Mhm.
was really obvious, but also like it felt like you were seeing what he was seeing throughout the decades.
Yep.
And it helps us sort of understand some other elements he shared, which was in the documentary from PBS that I just shared in the chat box, Photographic Justice, the Corky Lee story, which aired not recently. And I believe in the documentary, he shared that you can be alone and not be lonely, right? It's just sort of like this experience he had as a struggling photographer and doing this really important work, yet knowing that, anything can happen. And I
Mhm.
wonder, from your experiences, thinking about what he went through and how the connections he's made over time, how do we think about drawing that inspiration for future folks to really document this work going forward too, and not just like, okay, Corky Lee did it and no one else, could do this kind of work, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, what's important in the sense that is documentations and intentions, all right? But you have to understand that in the 70s, at the time, you give photography, you have to get the film, and it's rather expensive. Load it up, and one of the major things which we take for granted in photography is that you have to be in the right place at the right time. All right. And that's what he did. And it's a lot to just go across the country to photograph all the not say all, most of the Asian American events. And as I've shared with everybody else, that sometimes, and it's written in the book itself, Corky pretty much attend 3 or 4 Asian American events in New York in one day while he's still working. And he find time to do it. And I jokingly talk, share with everybody. I said, it would not be an Asian American event in New York without Corky presence. That's how uh, omnipresent he was with everybody. And as I mentioned, you have to be in the right place in the right time. And one of Corky's most memorable and most famous pictures is on police brutality that he took, which everybody is amazed and say, hey, um, they always think that police police brutality only happens to the black, but also happens to the Asian American also. And that photograph was featured on the New York Post. All right. But at the same time, photograph like this, which nobody has. And guess what? The Black Panther in the 70s went down to Chinatown, okay, with IWK, Ewo Queen. All right. And guess what? Corky documented it. And he's has no, not only that, but there are so many photographs in this book, which make a statement by itself in the sense that, that you have, those of you who are into Asian American studies, race against the Vietnam War, took it in the 70s in Washington, D.C. All right. Those are historical images. And as you said, a picture is worth 1,000 words. But these days, anybody can take a photograph. But how is it being used and what is it being used for and the context, that makes a difference. And here we have this one book. And this is a very interesting image. This one. All right. You know who this guy is? If you will look at the captions, this is one of the most famous director from Hong Kong who directed Once Upon a Time in China, uh, Choi Hao. And guess what? He was in New York against protesting of on for the community about housing, and he was part of the community at that point. All right, so Corky was at the right place at the right time. He make himself available, and that's important thing. So in these days of age, yes, we can photograph, images and stuff like that. Yes, but we have to be physically present. Yes, you can take photograph, with other means, but what's the intention? How is it useful? What is it useful? And that is the statement that need to be made, and more than anything else, need to be articulated in the right directions for our growth and for our future. You know.
Yeah, and folks, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to share it in the chat box, and we're happy to take them as they come. I wanted to also remark that in some of the entries, I grew up in some of the areas, the garment factory, the Mott Street, the restaurants in Chinatown in New York, and it was just really, really fascinating because as a child, I didn't realize that there were incidences happening in, for example, in Confucius Plaza
Mhm.
all these other disputes happening. So I felt like it was something I missed, but I was there, but I wasn't present, like you were saying, right? As a child, why would I be thinking about that? But it made me certainly reflect back the time that I was there and how I would make sense of it today. And yes, we did, Don, we did talk a little bit about this documentary. And Chee Wang, I don't know if you want to say a little more about this documentary. Oh, actually, this is a different one.
Now, there
Uh,
are two documentary that PBS has featured this month on Corky. That's how important he is. And one was by a 15 minutes short document, less than 15 minutes, a short film by Curtis Chin, and that is Dear Corky. And second one, which is slightly under an hour right now, documentary by Jennifer Takaki called um, Photographic Justice, the Corky Lee story. So there are two. And as I mentioned, that Corky make a point to document Pan Asians. And this photograph is about the candlelight vigil um, of the Japanese internment camp. All right. So how many how many people forget about it? But guess what? That's what Corky's book here to remind us of what you know the society, especially the Asian American society, has gone through over the time. From especially after post 1965, the reform of the Immigration Act, and to now, and what are a lot of people do not take into consideration how the society at last changed. And there you have, he reminds us what we have gone through and how far we need to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a question here from
Mhm.
Jerry. Where might one find more photos that did not make it into this book?
Oh, well, right now we are trying to consolidate Corky's materials, and hopefully, as the work being consolidated, in time, we will share more of Corky Lee's images. And if you need to know anything more about Corky, you can always outreach to www.corkylee.org. That is the official Corky Lee's estate website. So, send your question there, and if anything that we can, um, you know, help to for your particular project, and anything that you have in mind, please outreach to us, and we would able to help you to uh, you know share Corky's images, and to world at large. Right now, at this moment, there are two Corky Lee solo exhibitions, one in Albany, um, by the New York State, and another one is at the Duke University. And I think they will be there for, I think, for next 2 or 3 months. So Corky Lee's images are used quite widely available. And let us know what you want.
Yeah, there's another question here. Are the photos digitized or archived at a library for further research?
Oh, that is a big, project that we need to work upon. And so far, Kwaki only passed away for the last 3 years practically, and we just finished a book. And those are the future project that we would need to work on it.
Right. I think this goes along with the other question that just came out. What library or archives to house the photo collections permanently, which is something you're still working through, right?
Well, right now we are at the stage of trying to consolidate Koki's materials, and once that is being consolidated, um, we'll let everybody knows how the work will be much more available on different resource. But the whole point about the estate is to share, just like what we did with the book. Gets we have so much demand of it, we would like to share as much Koki's perspective, and the way he documented, and with the rest of the world at large.
Great. Thanks for clarifying that and expanding on your response. I don't see any other questions or comments, but so I wanted to ask you here
Mhm.
this uh potentially this last question if no one else has any more questions, which is I know we talked a little bit about this earlier about Corky's legacy and the importance of photographic justice from his lens and so forth. What do you hope readers will take away from this book overall?
What I think, it's everybody sees things with a different perspective, with their own language and understanding. What I like to everybody to take away with them is that, hey, I didn't know about that. As I said, I didn't know that the Muhammad Ali went to Chinatown. It's in the book. you know, things that that we take it for granted, but it takes so much more to know what in the society at large. We sometimes, with our daily life, we have blinders on, but I hope this book would give us a wider perspective and to understand humanities. Photograph is very much a reflections of society at large, but through Corky lenses, through Corky perspective, what we have missed and what he has helped us to remember, to document, the context of what it takes for us to get to this point and how far we need to go from here, you know. So that's the as simple as that, and as everybody said, pictures worth 1,000 words. But in what context, and how much is there for us to read? What this book also have is that we have very good articles uh, written by very prominent people from different level of society to reflect on how they sees the photograph and how Corky is important to their life and how much more Corky could have done if he would be here today. And and one of the things that Corky also likes to share with people is that, he would like the new generations to contribute much more. And what I was very, very happy to include in this photograph is the photograph but taken by one of Corky's good friend from Basement Workshop, Bob Shang, all right, of Corky's in his 20s. But if you look at the photograph, it is very much like any kids on the streets. But that was 50 years ago. And what is what is this average kid in the street 50 years from now? How much more they can contribute. So Corky's basically gave us a good footprint and good foundations, and we need to grow from there, you know.
Yeah, that's exactly capturing the ordinary and transforming into the extraordinary. And Don Michael shared a couple of resources in terms of digitization, which I believe I can share with you afterwards, and anyone who registered.
Mhm.
So here's another question here. What do you think are some ways that we can help continue the work that Corky started?
Well, basically share with everybody, this was Corky's visions, and that's how he has documented it. And what he really, really loved to do, which I've already curated two shows in tribute to Corky's. The first one was in Pearl River Mart, you know, in New York. And then after that show, we would we were so honored to invite it by the New York Eastern District Federal Court to do a more um, extensive show for Corky the following year. And in that show, we have 82 images. And in that show, there's only 12 images from Corky. And we have three Pulitzer Prize winner in that show. And each person show a different perspective of what photographic justice is about and what Corky's legacy is about. And we were so proud they were able to present it. And, Corky is one of those people that's very, very sharing. And you have to attend the event to shoot it, to be present, but to articulate that image in the right perspective, in the right context, because we have a voice and we need to be heard. And, this is what the media is all about. But at the same time, media are very, very much manipulated, but collectively, we have a stronger voice. And that is why we have the book. Instead of Chinese Americans, Asian Americans, we have a consolidated voice, a true voice that need to be articulated and need to be shared and need to be known more than anything else. And, the librarians is a good resource, and we like to share it with everybody. Say, hey, what is the right resource? What's the right contribution to the society at large? That's important. Yeah.
Great. And that is a really good point. And Jerry also shared Corky Lee Foundation on Instagram. So if you are
That states. It's not foundation, that states right now.
in the title, it says foundation. So maybe that's the if you click on the link, Chee Wang, you can see it says
Okay.
Corky Lee Foundation.
Mm.
So maybe this is not related to the state, or but maybe more a group that is supporting.
So far there's no foundation as it is. There so far it's only Corky Lee Estates, and as I said, www.corkylee.org. Go there. That's only one that is that is the official Corky Lee Estates. Other than that, what other stuff that you guys see on the website, just please ignore it, and that should not be the voice of Corky Lee. I mean, like a better word to say. Yeah.
Okay, thanks
Mhm.
for sharing that. Well, it looks like we are good with all the questions and comments coming in. So want to thank you and Professor Ming. I unfortunately couldn't be here, but congratulate you both.
Yeah.
Working on this, like you said, 13 years for quite a while with Corky. And so really this is just such a stellar work, compilation of many experiences, but like you said, it really resonates with that solidarity, the voice of Asian America. And so thank you again, Chee Wang, for making time today to speak with us.
Mm. Thank you. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed the books. And basically, at this point, is that we have done the first step to share Corky's work with the rest of the society at large, and make a statement of what Corky is all about and his visions. And what we need to do is that is only the first step. What we need, this is only a tool, a documentation in the right context, and in the right context, we can go into the right directions, and that's the foundations and the directions that need to be followed. And I hope everybody share the book and enjoy it for what it is, and to read it in the right context. Thank you.